Like error is fine here. It is. Like it's the first answer.
Right. It's writing out what you're telling it to. Tree, so in that case, you're not saving to the file. Yes. See, you remember PWD to show what the data had. So it's try to work.
Oh, we have one of I think so.
Yes. Yeah, you have two try to work folders. You have one, this one is on your desktop, and this one is straight in your user. So that's pretty cool. I thought I was like that.
Okay.
Cool.
Hey, we did it.
So, class desktop.
Only the JavaScrict twice. Only counts the JavaScript is bad. So the HTML doesn't count. So it really couldn't.
Excellent. Did you enjoy the break?
Yes.
That's good. Cool. So let's see what to do next. Let's comment. Oh, that wasn't what I wanted to. So if you end up doing that, you can see these ones. It's just hiding the code, but it will actually run still. So that would be very confusing, which I've been hiding something and it's running in the background. Cool. Okay, so I kind of told you that we wouldn't introduce new stuff except for objects. And I think it's really important that we talk about objects this time because I've been planning it for the past 2 times and I had to postpone it every time. So you remember I told you like really simplified that if you have an array, it's like ordered list. So that's typically what you would use a OL and HTML for. And an object is kind of like a unordered list. In that you cannot really trust that things comes in and out in the same order as you might expect when it's an object. But that's very simplified. The object is so much more than that. Actually, the object is the foundation of JavaScript, you could say. So I can actually do something like if I create a function, I probably haven't even shown you this yet, but you can actually take a function and you can save it in a variable. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm just doing this to just show you something. Then you can do something like this, type of me. So remember me. What do you expect this one to tell us? What is me? A function, right? Yeah, it should be a function. Keep forgetting this. Oh, yeah. I thought it would say object. Isn't that
If you would have.
This is simplified, maybe serialize it into an object at that point.
Okay,
In
the
objects,
point
you don't go
the point I'm trying to come through here is that that everything in JavaScript is inheriting from objects. So if I did instead, I could maybe try doing an array. So if I do an array here, it would tell me that an array is an object. That's weird, right? The point is that an array is an object. An array is just a certain type of object. It's a special type of object where we know that the order of the elements is guaranteed, and we know we can do like stuff like .length on an array, and there's a lot of other functions that you can do on an array that you cannot do on an object. So the point I'm trying to come through here is that underlying most of the tools that we use in JavaScript are actually objects. That's why telling you that this is the difference between arrays and objects, that is very oversimplified. So, but in practice, the way that we use them, it's actually not too far off. So I'll show you some examples where I would use an object instead of using an array. So as I told you, if you have something where you have some sort of sequence to it, so if it's like Happy Future classes, you have to do class 1 before you do class 3, otherwise you would have struggled to do class 3, right? So if it's like a class list, if it's called like that, I don't know, curriculum or maybe something like that, you would probably use an array for that. But if it's something where it has kind of like labels, then it's probably a good idea to use an object. So let's try using the example of car. So if it's a car, it might have a brand. And wait, filling out everything right now. Maybe I add some lines so it's a bit easier to see. It might have a brand. It might have a model. It might have some amount of horsepower. Let's say this is a Mercedes. And something like that. It's not like I looked up how many horsepower that has, but probably less. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. So let's call this one car 1 because of course we want to have more cars. Don't we all? So let's say this one is a Renault Clio, and it has significantly less horsepower. So the point here is that rather than going, if it's an array, let's put something inside this array. So imagine if this is the wrong implementation of a car, in my opinion, would look something like this. So it would say Mercedes, something like this. And if you want to take the car tree, which is essentially the same as car 1, and you want to get the horsepower, right? Then you have to know what index is horsepower in here. So you have to do console.log car tree, and then you have to say 0, 1, 2. Okay. And something
You need to write down 3.
It was car 3 instead of car in the log. Yeah.
Car 3.
You're right. Right, okay. The point is that you need to keep track of this index, and it might change if someone puts other stuff in there and stuff like that. It's not so great. On the other hand, if it was like the class list, Hack Your Future class list, it's like it makes more sense to go and look at index 0 for, that would actually be class 1 index 0 because it's 0 indexed. But you could maybe leave the first place in the array arrow, and then you can like, if you leave the first place empty, then you could like, things would match up, but it doesn't really matter so much. The point is that there's a specific sequence to it. If we put things in an object, we can do something else. So if instead of using car 3, we use car 1, we can actually do something like this, and we can type horsepower instead. And you will get the same result. And you can do something even simpler when we have, let me just keep both lines so you can see the difference. So we can actually do something like this as well. Whoops. Like this. And you see it still works. So this is when you have an object, what happens is that you have a key and a value. You have a key value pair, we say. Right. So I could take this one up here and I could like rewrite it. I just put in some spaces so it's easier to read what's going on. I could have chosen to do something like this, right? And if that's the case, you see it kind of looks like this. It's just I repeat these things. Key, value, and so on, right? So this one is the key, this one is the key, this one is the key, and this is the value that corresponds to that key, right? If you wanted to implement an array in an object, you could do something like 0, 1, 2. Then it would kind of function the same way as an array does, right?
Is it a key?
Huh?
Is it a key like the array?
Yeah, so actually what we call the index in the array is also a key. My point is that objects, they might get changed around. So maybe it'll look like this. But it doesn't really matter if you use numbers like this as the keys, because you just do like car2 and then you do, if you do this, you don't really care if it's sitting here or it's sitting there on the list. Actually, it will find the key here and it will give you the value, no matter where it is on the list. So this is sort of how arrays are implemented in JavaScript, because I just told you that arrays are objects if you do a type of. So arrays are basically, they're specialized objects. They're objects that have a special purpose, whereas objects are much more general. They can be used for a lot of other stuff. And let me show you some of the stuff that you can do with the objects. So have any of you heard of the term called the methods? Mm-hmm. You know it from another programming language, or? Okay. You might have heard the three of us saying methods sometimes about functions. And that might be just us like misspeaking or whatever you call it, because until now we've been dealing with functions. But I'll show you what a method is. So say we have an object. Let's reuse what we already have. Actually, yeah, no, whatever. Let's do something like this. Start engine. Okay, so what does he want here? Does he want to have a string where it tells us how to start the engine? Turn the key or something like that? No, that's not what I want. I actually want to put a function in here. And something like this, right? Okay, so this looks different, right, from how we normally type functions, right? Normally what we do is something like this. And then we would have the actual code to start the engine, right? You see the difference? So what we're doing here is we leverage the fact that JavaScript can create anonymous functions. So this is a function being created right here as we need it on this object. But the first thing we do is we actually save that function, or we give it a key. So this is the value still, like we had it up here. This is the value, this is the key. This is the value, this is the key, and so on, right? So this way we actually, even though we don't give the function a name, we can still call it. So what we would be doing here is we would, maybe we'll put some real code in here, sort of real. I'm not going to implement engine management for a car or anything like that. But we could do something like this. So probably have to comment on a lot of stuff up here to not mess things up. So we have the object car1, and it has some keys and some properties, or keys or values, and it has a method here, right? Did I say that clearly? Once you put a function on an object, it turns into a method. That was the point. I don't think I was clear. So if you have a function and you attach that function to an object, so if you put the function into an object, it's called a method. It's basically still the same thing. That's why, at least I know I'm sometimes confusing things, because in other programming languages, functions are actually called methods. So it's really easy to confuse these things. I just want to show you that you can have functions. Is that me?
Someone probably.
Seriously? I think we need to set a password for Chromecast.
Definitely someone German.
Is that typical German? So it's
No, it's just a playlist called Morgenliste.
oh, so it's for Christopher.
Can you?
So right now that one's saying
No, it's not.
stop, please. I could actually turn up the volume and stuff like that. That would be fun. But now I'm only mirroring my browser again. I hate that. Can I just tell it to default do everything? Yay, I'm back in control. Cool. I need to do something about that. Cool. Okay. So we have the object here, and this object has a method there. So how would we call that one? Can we just do start engine? Let's try that out. No, it doesn't work. Start engine is not defined. Huh. But we define it here, right? Yeah?
Yeah,
Yeah,
car
we should,
start engine.
Yeah, it's car1. Car1.
car1 dot.
Start engine.
Let's try it. Room. Excellent. It works.
Oh, can we?
That means
Arguments and
Yes, we can pass arguments as well.
you can.
So you can do
okay.
Yeah, so-
Can I ask a question? Okay.
let me just first.
Just put a number and then 3 times boom, boom.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this was what if you wanted me to repeat it. No, I'm just lazy. So like that, right? So, right?
That
Question.
means you can call any of the keys as a function. For example, you can say car1 brand.
Yeah, so I'm not calling it as a function.
Okay.
I'm accessing the property of the object. That means that I'm telling the object what do we have on this key. But if what it has on that key is a function, and I'm doing this one right there, it will run that function. So if we can do brand. I think we already did this work, right? But just to show. So I get room, and then I'll get Mercedes, right? But I could also, if I did console.log, so if I try to access a key where the value is a method, and I don't try to call it, what will happen now? Well, like this. What do you think will happen?
Yeah, it's gonna show us the
So it tells me I have a function, and that function is called start engine. So it just gives me back the function. But that's actually pretty cool, because if I want to, I could do like let my function, something like that. So now I'm saving the function in a variable here, and then down here I can do my function, and I can run it, and I can do something like this. I'm actually thinking if I'm getting a little ahead of myself right now. Yeah, I just covered some Well, actually, no. So this one works, but why do we get the undefined?
Because it doesn't return anything.
Yeah. Okay. So this one.
Yeah.
We'll do something like that, and then we get true or whatever. Yeah. So when we run things in the console like that, we always have to do console log statements, and that kind of like means that we end up doing functions that are not so nice. I would prefer to have this one be more like this, which would make sense. Yeah, I think this should run right. Yeah. So cool. So you're probably thinking, what do I need this for? Can I just do my start engine like out here or something like that? And yeah, you can actually do that in a lot of cases. But there's also a lot of cases where you can't do it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be teaching you this. But as I told you earlier on, this one, console.log. You remember that one? So this was the function call, right? But what's this? Huh? Yeah, it's a console that we see on the screen. But in JavaScript, it's an object. So console is an object, and that object has a method. So console log is actually a method. And we can pass arguments to that method, and it will do stuff for us. So being able to put functions inside of objects is just a way that you can encapsulate code. That means that you can like group code that belongs together. You can group that together, so it comes with all the stuff that you want it to depend on. So imagine I could like maybe expand a little bit on this one. Why can't I turn off my comments now? Oh, there it is. So imagine that Mercedes is doing a genius new self-driving system. So I want to do self-drive, and that's a function as well. And maybe I'll want to do something like destination or something like that. But in order for a car to self-drive, it has to start first, right? So yeah, maybe I should do start engine. Try doing that.
But you had start engine before.
Yeah, but the point is, go straight, turn right, and so on and so on. So the plan is I start the engine and then I start doing a lot of other stuff when we do the self-drive function. So maybe this might be park the car for me, right? So it'll start the engine and then we'll drive somewhere. But nothing happened. And the reason why nothing happened is that it's trying to see if there's like a start engine out here that it can run, and there's not. So what I can do is I can say this. And this means that I have to look inside the object that I'm in, and I have to look for a property that's called start engine. And in this case, I know that it's a method, so I can like try to run it as well. It doesn't work. Oh, I'm not even trying to do the self-drive thing. I was expecting an error before. I just thought like I got lucky or something like that. So let's try that. Yeah, the usual stuff. I'm rushing a little bit now. So yeah, you're right.
But it's empty.
So this one is returning. Maybe if we go back to doing console up here. Yay, although I do get a lot of undefined. But
can't you just, down there in 244, just
Yeah.
call it without the console log?
yeah, now I can. So now I get one undefined less. But that's because the way we're calling things up here. I didn't really set it up the right way from the beginning.
What is just return?
Yeah, I can return everything. So I can do like return start engine. So that will
But then we have to return the start engine as well, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and then this one should be returned. Yeah, let's do it proper. And then we have to wrap this one as console log again. That was actually what I was heading for before. Yeah, still get one undefined because we don't pass anything.
Yeah.
No, we do pass something there, and we pass something there.
Yeah, undefined. We need to pass something to the start engine, right?
Because we have destination
And from self.
Or this one?
Yeah. So if you pass it,
Oh yeah.
there.
Cool. Yeah. Oh yeah. So there was times, and then there's the number that's missing. That's true. Yeah.
yeah.
So that's this one matches up with this one. That's true. Yeah. Cool. All right. Yes, that was quite a lot. I don't think the homework right now on the repo is not up to date because we haven't really taught you the stuff that you need to do the homework. I tried to come up with some homework earlier in the class, but that was kind of based on that we were going to get through everything here, and we didn't do that either, so we have to revise it again. So I think we'll just have to talk together and figure out some homework that you can actually complete, and then we'll post that hopefully today, tomorrow by the latest. And we'll post on Slack whenever we update that. So don't rush home and start doing the homework that's on the GitHub repo. We'll update that as soon as possible.
But yeah, the free code camp exercises and the JavaScript part. We saw that we still have something.
Yeah,
to do there,
that still applies. So if you want to get started, you can do the free code camp exercises. And there was also an exercise about organizing your GitHub repository. You can get started with that one as well. We won't change that.
And the trolley files, I don't know how to get that. The last part, is it Triolo?
Trello?
Yeah.
No,
we
don't.
want to use
No worry.
Yeah, don't worry about that. That's just because we this entire thing was originally copied from Amsterdam,
Okay.
and we're trying to adapt it as we go. But to be honest, there's a lot of stuff that's like references to what they're doing in Amsterdam. So sorry if there are any. I think maybe that should be removed. So maybe you ended up on this one instead, because this one is Amsterdam. So definitely make sure that you're looking on the Copenhagen one.
Exactly. When you're in GitHub, always double check if you're actually in the CPH version.
Yeah.
Because like we're changing everything right now, but we always keep rediscovering like
Exactly, and everything looks the same, but it's different, and yeah. So, all right.
I mean, it's not the end of the world if you end up in the Amsterdam one, but it can be a bit confusing.
The worst thing that can happen is you do some work that you're not supposed to, but you'll for sure learn a lot from it anyway. But if you end up with something where you're like, oh my god, this is crazy hard, I never heard about anything like this before. First thing, make sure you're in the right repo. Second thing, post on Slack. So if you post on Slack and say, yeah, I can figure out that exercise about something, and you're like, oh, what the hell, that's not homework, then there's probably something going on there.
Yeah.
So
the last assignment, I got stuck at question 12.
okay.
Maybe you take it later.
Yeah, but we can have a look at it now after class. So, all right. Questions?
Yeah, I have one question about the watching thing. Homework, Lunda. Should we do it or search for like reading stuff?
You mean the reading for next time?
No,
if you
not
should do that?
reading. There's videos in every homework. There's videos on Lunda. And then
On lynda.com. Yeah, okay.
yeah, and we don't like that.
Yeah.
Don't you have access?
No, not yet. I mean,
Okay.
account.
The need account.
Yeah.
We have some accounts for Linda, but usually we just we only do that in the first and second JavaScript.
Right. Oh yeah. So it's actually this one for next time, right? No. The homework will be this one, right?
Because like
Yeah, but I think it was in
homework one. One and two they have both like
Okay. So in week 2 there were some
Links to the
yeah. It's
It's like
like
the score.
I think it was in the prep. Right?
step one.
Yeah.
Work on
where?
yeah.
There's some Khan Academy. Linda there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. If you don't have access helpers, you can't do them.
But we still have all the free code can exercises.
Yeah.
Basically, I've not seen any 46 there.
So
But I don't know. Mine here, I've covered 46, but when I send it to him,
yeah.
please read 6. I don't understand.
Okay.
JavaScript based.
Yeah, but that's because it's not the
Yeah, but you
JavaScript.
can also, I think, in the
Yeah.
He only looks at
Let
the
me show you.
JavaScript.
Let me show you what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I've covered